Hello and welcome. In this video and in the next couple of videos, we will be learning about the CSS Flexbox. So, by using CSS Flexbox, we can create some interesting layouts inside of our HTML page. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll go to the browser and I have already opened the W3 Schools documentation, which is pretty nice. So let's see what it is saying. CSS Flexbox is short for the CSS Flexible Box Layout Module. Flexbox is a layout model for arranging items horizontally or vertically within a container in a flexible and responsive way. Flexbox makes it easy to design a flexible and responsive layout without using float or positioning. And as a matter of fact, that is the reason I didn't cover the float at all inside of our HTML and CSS playlist. Okay, so this is the CSS Flexbox. Now, if we go to the MDN, inside of the Flexbox, what we have a ton of different CSS properties. We have the align content, we have align items, we have align self, we have flex, flex basis, flex direction, flex flow, flex grow, flex shrink, flex wrap, and justify content. Okay, and there are some of the other things as well which we will definitely cover in our videos. Okay, so now you might be thinking like, hey, what is the point of learning about the CSS Flexbox and what benefits the CSS Flexbox brings to us? Okay, to demonstrate that, I have opened the GitHub landing page. I'll zoom in a little bit. Okay, all right. So as you can see, this is the landing page, and this page is using the CSS Flexbox and grid quite a lot. Okay, for example, this navigation bar, as you can see, if I just open the DevTools, okay, this is now responsive, but as you can see, the navigation bar shrinks down and expands based on the size of our viewport. Okay, so as you can see, now it is responsive. I'll just zoom out a little bit. Okay, as you can see, here it is. So there are a bunch of things going on here inside of this navigation bar as well. Also, you can see that here all of the elements are quite neatly centered and all of them are stayed together here. And in the right side here we have the sign in and the sign up buttons. So how we can do that? We can achieve this sort of layout by using the CSS Flexbox, and we will definitely build something similar to this navigation bar in the upcoming videos as well. Okay, so in that way, if you just go ahead, scroll down, we have these images as well, and then we have this sort of section where on the left we have this text and on the right we have this image. So I think this is also is using the CSS Flexbox. Okay, and if you go down a bit, as you can see, we have the similar layout here. We have on the left side some sort of text, and on the right side we have some sort of image as well. We have these three things as well, and so on. So as you can see, this website is using the CSS Flexbox quite a lot. And not only this particular website, but also all of the modern websites which you see uses the CSS Flexbox, because it allows us to arrange the items horizontally and vertically however we want. So we will be discussing about the CSS Flexbox and all of its syntax and all of the CSS properties in this video series. All right, so this is it for this video. Let's catch up in the next one. All right, in this video we will write some code and we will use the CSS Flexbox. But before doing that, we have to learn about some terms which the CSS Flexbox uses. Okay, so the main question you might be thinking like, hey, how we can use the CSS Flexbox? So to use the CSS Flexbox, we will have a container, that is this one, and that container is called the Flex container. Okay, and in this container we will set the display to flex, which we will do in a moment. Okay, so this is the flex container, and inside of the container we will have some items which is called the flex items. I might call them some box, some items, or so on, but the items which are inside of a flex container is called the flex items. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Now, if we add the display to flex inside of the container, then something different happens, which we will definitely see inside of the code. So let's jump into the code. Okay, so let's go to the code. Here it is. Now inside of the code, I have done some things. So first of all, I have created this h1, and then I have created this div with the class of container. Inside of that, we have 6 different boxes. Okay, we have the div with the class of box, and then we have some unique classes attached with each of the boxes. For the first one, we have the class 1, and inside of the div we are having the 1 here, number 1. Okay, then the second box have the class of 2, and inside of the div we have 2. Okay, then the third box have the class of 3. Inside of that we have 3. The fourth box have the class of 4. Inside of that we have the 4. We have once again the 5, and then we have the 6. Okay, so we have 6 different divs, and these are boxes. Okay, now what we will do, definitely we will turn this container to a flex container. All right, and inside of the style, what I have done some of the global styles. I have set the margin to 0, padding to 0, box sizing to border box, and I have done the font family, which is this one. Then inside of the h1, we have the font size, which is set to 5 rem, and we have the text aligned to center. The container has some CSS properties as well. It has the width of 1500 pixel. It has the margin of 50 pixel and auto to center it. And then it has the border of 5 pixels solid and black. And then each of the boxes have the width set to 200 pixel, height set to 200 pixel, font size set to 4 rem, text align set to center. Okay, this is for the all of the boxes, and for each of the individual boxes which we have with the different class names, we have a different background color. So the first one, which has the class of 1, has the background color of blue violet. Then the second one, which has the class of 2, has the background color of red. The third one has the background color of green. The fourth one has the background color of coral. The fifth one has the background color of cadet blue. The sixth one has the background color of dark magenta. All right, so this is all the CSS which I have currently right now, which is quite small. So what I will encourage you to pause the video and write down all of the HTML and CSS. Okay? Okay, now if you have done everything correctly, if you go to the browser, which is opened with live server, as you can see, here is our boxes. This is the container which has the black outline here, and inside of that we have 6 boxes. And this is the expected behavior. Nothing new, right? Now if I go to our code, and inside of the container we can do display set to flex. Okay, and now if I save that, something different will happen. So save and go to the browser. Now as you can see, all of the elements are in one line. Previously all of the div had the display set to block because the div is the block level element. But currently what is happening, every div is inside of a single line. And please remember this numbering as well. So this is the first element, then second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Okay. All right. So this is the display flex property. Now you might be thinking, okay, so what is exciting about the display flex property? Because after setting the display flex inside of the container, what will happen? Remember all of these properties which we have seen before: the align content, align items, align self, flex, flex basis, flex direction, flex flow, flex grow, flex shrink, flex wrap, justify content. All of this will work. If we do not set the display to flex inside of the container, none of this property will work. Okay. All right. So I can show it to you in a bit. So what I can do justify content to flex end. And if I save that, currently right now, go to the browser, currently all of the elements have moved to the right side. Okay. And the ordering is the same. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. So this is the one. Now, if I just comment out the display flex and save, what will happen? Nothing will happen. It is in the original shape which it was before. Okay. So as you can see, this is important. If you want to use the Flexbox, then you have to set display flex inside of the container. Only then you can use the Flexbox and all of its properties. All right. So this is the justify content which we will learn. Definitely we will learn in detail. Don't worry about that. Okay. Now, after this has happened, what we have some other things to learn. Okay. So here is our another diagram. So we have to learn about two different things. One of them is the main axis and another one is the cross axis. Now you might be thinking, okay, the main axis seems to be in the x direction and the cross axis is seem to be in the y direction. But we are not using the x and y because by using the flex direction property, we can interchange the main and the cross axis. Okay. So this is something which we can do, but currently right now inside of this diagram, we are setting the main axis to the horizontal one and the cross axis in the vertical one. So you might be thinking like, hey, what exactly is the main axis and what exactly is the cross axis? So the main axis is the axis in the direction in which the content is flowing. Currently right now, if I go to my browser, what is happening here is if we set the display to flex, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is why I have written the numbers here. So it is going from left to right. Okay. So that is why the main axis is currently something like this. And the cross axis is perpendicular to the main axis. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. And if you do not able to grasp it currently right now, do not worry. We will be having a dedicated video discussing about the main axis, cross axis and the flex direction property. All right, so this is the display flex CSS property. Hi, welcome. In this video, we will be learning about the flex direction CSS property. In the last video, we have learned about the concept of the main axis and the cross axis inside of the Flexbox. In this video, we will see how we can control the direction of the main and the cross axis by using the flex direction CSS property. Okay, so if we go to the browser here, as you can see, the flex direction CSS property sets how flex items are placed in the flex container, defining the main axis and the direction, normal or reversed. What it is saying by using the flex direction CSS property, we can control the direction of the main axis. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, what I'll do, I'll go to my code editor. Inside of that, we have the styles.css. Now, we are doing the display flex, right? So now if I go to the browser here, as you can see, our content is flowing from left to right. Okay. Why it is flowing from left to right? Because it is having the 1 in on the left, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the order. Okay. So if we go here and do flex direction to row, okay, hit save, nothing will change because by default the flex direction is set to row when we define a flex box. Basically, whenever we are defining the display set to flex, then the flex direction by default is set to row. Now what we can do, we can set it to column as well. Okay, if we do that, then okay, all right, flex direction to column, hit save and go here. Let me just refresh. Okay, let me just open this up inside of the live server. All right, okay, so if I just go to here, okay, all right, so now it is working properly once again. So as you can see, if we set the flex direction to column, then all of the content is stacked one on top of another. Okay, and the direction of the content or the direction of the main axis here is from top to bottom, because one is on top of everything, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if we go here and go to the diagram, now what is happening here? So this main axis was previously here. Okay, if I just zoom out a little bit, so this was the main axis, but currently right now when we are setting the flex direction to column, then what is happening? Our main axis is going to here and the cross axis is going to here, and this arrow will reverse. Okay, this arrow will reverse. I hope that makes sense. Now this is the direction of our main axis, which is from top to bottom. Okay, now if we go to the documentation once again, we have some different things as well. We can have flex direction set to row, what we have seen, and this is the default. Then we can set the flex direction to row reverse as well. So if we set the flex direction to row reverse, then what will happen? I will just do this. Okay. Okay, then what will happen? So cross axis will be this, and if we set the flex direction to row reverse, then this will happen. The direction will be changed. Okay, so our content will flow from right to left. Okay, and we can see that as well. So if I go to my code editor and let me just do it here and do it something like row reverse. If we do that, go to the browser, as you can see, 1 is here, 2 is here, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the direction of the content is from right to left. That is why the direction of the main axis is from right to left as well. Okay, and then we can do something like column reverse as well. So if I do column reverse, if I do that, then what will happen? If I go to the Excalibur once again, so if I do that, then okay, let me just check out this one. Okay, all right, so this is the main axis currently right now. So if we set the flex direction to column reverse, then the main axis will be this and the cross axis will be this. Okay, so if I go to the browser right now, as you can see, the content is flowing from bottom to top. Okay, that is why the direction of the main axis is from bottom to top as well. So by using the flex direction CSS property, we can set the direction of the main axis, and depending on the main axis, the cross axis is defined as well. Okay, and here one notable thing is, note that the values row and row reverse are affected by the directionality of the flex container. If its direction attribute is left to right, basically the row represents the horizontal axis oriented from the left to right, and row reverse from the right to left. If the direction attribute is right to left, for example, when this can happen, if you are using some sort of a language which starts from right and it ends to the left, something like Hebrew, then what will happen? The direction attribute will be right to left. Then the row represents the axis oriented from right to left and row reverse from left to right. What does it say? Basically, because we are using English and English starts from left and end at right, that is why this sort of behavior is happening. But if we have some sort of a language, something like Hebrew, which starts at right and ends at left, then what will happen? The everything what we have learned will be opposite. Okay, then the flex direction, if you set to row, that will be opposite. If you set to row reverse, that will be opposite as well. So this flex direction depends on the language which we are using, and currently we are using English, and that is why we will be working with the first example, because the dir attribute is set to left to right. Okay, so this is the flex direction CSS property. Hi, welcome back. In this video we will be learning about the flex wrap CSS property. Okay, so if we go to the documentation here, the flex wrap CSS property sets whether flex items are forced onto one line or can wrap onto multiple lines. Okay, if wrapping is allowed, it sets the direction that lines are stacked. Okay, so the default one for this flex wrap property, the default value is no wrap. Okay, so I can show it to you. So currently here it is. So if I go here and do something like flex direction to row, and then so the width of the container is 1500 pixels. So what I can do something like 400 pixel of width. If I set it to that, then what will happen? So we have 6 items, right? We have 6 boxes, and each of the boxes have 400 pixels worth of width. So in total, that should be 400 times 6 equals to 2400 pixels. Okay, so surely our content should be overflowing. So let's see what happens. If I set it to that, now go here, as you can see, our content is not overflowing yet. And what has happened is basically our boxes have shrunk down so that they can fit into that particular 1500 pixel. I can show it to you as well. If I just open the DevTools and select one element and open the computer tab, and here it is. Okay, the width is 248.328 pixels. Okay, so as you can see, the width is shrunk down. It is not 400 pixel. So what we can do here, we can set the flex wrap to no wrap, which is the default one, and if we do that, nothing will change. Now we can set the flex wrap to wrap, and if we do that, then what will happen? Our content will be wrapped around multiple lines. So what is happening? We are having the first row, and each of the elements currently right now has 400 pixels of width. Okay, and it has wrapped around to the next line. That is why we have a second row as well. Okay, so this is what flex wrap does. Now if I just do that, so this is it. Now if I go here, and what I can do, I can increase the width to something like 800 pixels. So now each and every element is in its separate row. Now we can just go to 400 pixels. Now this is the flex direction. Okay, So now if I set the flex direction to row reverse, then what will happen? So if I do that, then what is happening? Our content is starting from the right and going to the left, and the next row is starting from the right and going to the left. Okay, so here it is. Now I will just convert it to row, and let's change it to column right now. Okay, if I hit save, currently right now the height is 200 pixels for each of the boxes, and our container has no fixed height. So that is why what will happen, each and every element will be stacked one on top of another. But if I just add the height to 400 pixel and add the height for the container of something like 1500 pixels once again, if I save that, now as you can see, there are two columns. The first column is starting from top to bottom, and the second column is starting from top to bottom as well. Okay, why is that? Because the flex direction is set to column. Now if I do something like column reverse, so now our columns are starting from bottom and ending to the top. Okay, so let's do the column. Okay, and here it is. Now apart from the no wrap and wrap, there is another value which flex wrap can have, which is the wrap reverse. And to demonstrate that, what I'll do, I'll go to the flex direction and set it to row, and let's see what happens. So currently the flex direction is set to row and the flex wrap is set to wrap. So this happens. Okay, we have two different rows. One thing to remember is that where is our first row? It is on top, because 1 2 3, right? This is the first element, then second and third. Okay, now if I set the wrap reverse here and go to the browser, now our first row is on the bottom, and then we have the second row on top of that. So it is setting the direction in which the extra elements will be rendered, or the extra row or the column will be rendered. Okay, so if we set the flex wrap to wrap reverse, then previously what was happening is that our 1 2 3, this row was on the top, and then under that we had this row. But if we set the flex wrap to wrap reverse, then the new row will be on top of the previous row. Okay, I know this is a little bit confusing, and I personally do not use the wrap reverse quite often. I just use the normal wrap. Okay, and if we want to mess around with this, then what we can do, we can set it to row reverse as well, and flex wrap to wrap reverse. Then this thing will happen. So our content is now starting from the right and going to the left, and we have our new column on top of our first column. Okay, so yeah, I know this is a little bit confusing, but to demonstrate the simple one, what we will do is I will just do the flex direction set to row and the flex wrap set to wrap. Okay, so if we set that, then what will happen? The elements which are not fitting inside of the width will be on to their separate row or separate column, depending on the flex direction and the height and the width, basically. So this is the flex wrap CSS property. Hi, welcome back. In this video, we will be learning about the justify content CSS property. So let's go to the documentation. So the justify content CSS property defines how the browser distributes space between and around content items along the main axis of a flex container and inline axis of grid and multi-call containers. Okay, so let's go to our code editor and see. So basically you have seen these things. So let me just reduce the width and the height. Let's do 200 let's do 200. Okay, and we are having the flex wrap. I am commenting that out currently right now, and if I just save and go to the browser, there we go, here it is. Okay, and also I am commenting out the height as well. Okay, now what is happening here is that the space, the leftover space, is on the right side because our main axis is going from left to right. Okay, that is why all of the space is stacking on the right side, but we can change that by using the justify content CSS property. So let's do justify content, and here we can do flex start. Okay, and this is the default value for the justify content as well. Okay, if we do that, nothing changes. All right, and we can do something like flex end as well. And now all of the elements are stacking on the right side. But please note that the main axis direction is not changed here. You might be thinking, if I set the flex direction to row reverse, I will be getting the same result. But no, we will not be getting the same results. I can show it to you. So justify content is now flex end. Before that, let's see. So the first element is here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our main axis is going from left to right. Okay. Now, if I just comment out the justify content and do the flex direction to row reverse and save, now, as you can see, our content is reversed, right? So the first block is currently here, then second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. So our content direction is reversed, and that is why the main axis direction is currently going from right to left. Okay, I hope that makes sense and how these two are different. All right, so I will just get rid of that. I will just set the flex direction to row for now and the justify content set to flex end. Okay, we can set it to flex end as well. Now there are some other values which we can set. So if I go to the documentation on the justify content, as you can see, we have space between, space around, and space evenly. So let's see what is the space between do. So I will just set the justify content to space between. Hit save. Now if I go to the browser, as you can see, all of the space which was previously there left over is now equally distributed between the elements. Okay, and one thing to point out here is that the first element and the last element is at the edge, right? There is no space between the border and the elements, and all of the other elements have the space equally distributed among them. All right, so this is what space between does. Then what we can do, we can set it to space around as well. So let's see that. So let's do space around and hit save. Now, as you can see, what is happening here, all of the space is now distributed around the all of the elements. So here we have some space which is equal to here we have some space, and then in the second element we have on the left side some space, and then we have some space on the right side. So what is happening here is that the space which is left over, right, is now equally distributed around all of the elements. And that is why there is some space between the edge and the first and the last elements. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Then we have the space evenly. So if we do that, space evenly, okay, it is almost similar to space around, which we have seen so far. Now if we set the justify content to space evenly, then what will happen, the space between the edge or the border and the first element will be equal to the space between the first and the second element, and so on. And then we have some space between the border and the last element as well. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So this is the space evenly. Then we have the most important justify content value, which is center. And it is very, very important because whenever we want to center some of the elements inside of the flex box, we use the justify content to center. So what it will do, it will center all of the elements and distribute all of the space on the left and the right side currently right now, because we have the flex direction set to row. If we set the flex direction to column, then it will equally distribute the space on the top and the bottom of the elements. Okay, so this is how we can center the elements on the main axis by using the justify content to center. Okay, so here as you can see, there are a bunch of values which the justify content can have. Okay, we have the start, we have the end, we have the flex start, flex end, we have the center, left, right, normal, and so on and so forth. We have seen the space between, space around, and space evenly. Okay, all right, so this is the justify content for the flex direction when it is set to row. Now let's see what happens if we set the flex direction to column. First of all, what I'll do, I will just uncomment the height. Okay, and then what I'll do, I'll just set the justify content to flex start. Hit save. Okay, all right, and also I have to set the flex direction to row, not row, column. Okay, hit save. Now as you can see, all of the elements are stacking one on top of another. So we can do flex end as well. Now if we set the justify content to flex end and the flex direction to column, then what will happen? Our column which we had previously, now it is stacking at the bottom edge, right? So this is what happens. Once again, you might be thinking, okay, I can do it something like the column reverse. Okay, we can do that, but then what will happen, the direction of the content will be changing, right? So the first element is now at the bottom. So if we want to preserve the direction, then we have to use the justify content. Then we can do justify content to center. Okay, if we do that, then now our content is centered vertically. Okay, once again, we can do something like space between. If we do that, now what will happen? The first and the last element is at the edge of the border, basically, for the container, and all of the space is now equally distributed between all of the elements. Okay, then we can do space around. If we do that, then all of the space which we had vertically, okay, now it is distributed around the individual elements equally. Okay, then we can do space evenly, which is very, very similar to space around, but now what will happen, all of the space is now evenly distributed around all of the elements. That is why the amount of space between the border and the first element is equal to the space between the first element and the second element, and so on. And at the end, we have some space as well after our last element. Okay, now this is good. Now what will happen if we turn on the flex wrap? We can turn on that, we can do something like row, and then we can just, let's see, we can comment out this one for now, and we can add the width to something like 400 pixels. If we do that, now as you can see, we have multiple rows and all of the elements are now separated by the equal amount of space because we have the justify content set to space evenly. We can do something like flex start. If we do that, then this will happen for multi-row layouts. and we can do something like center. So this will happen. So all of the elements are at the center right now. Okay. All right. And then we can just turn on this and we can make the height 400 pixels. Okay. So as you can see, there are much more space currently right now. Now, one thing which I want to mention here, we are not controlling the space between each of the rows or each of the columns yet. We will see how to do that. But currently right now, we are controlling the space between or around all of the elements. Okay. All right. If we do that and then do flex direction to column, hit save. Now we are having something like this. So we are having the justify content set to center. We can do space around as well. So all of the elements will have the space equally distributed around them. And then we can do something like space evenly as well. So all of the elements will have equal amount of space. And then we can do something like space between. So now for each of the column, the first and the last element is attached with the edge of the container, and all of the space is distributed among the all of the elements inside of the particular column. Okay, and it is true for the row as well. If we want to set it to something like row, okay, if I do that, then this will happen. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So this is the justify content CSS property. And currently, as you can see, we are not controlling the space between the columns or the rows. We are controlling the space between the elements. Okay. Hence, in the next couple of videos, we will see how we can control the space between all of the columns and the rows and so on. So yeah, this is justify content CSS property. Hello and welcome. In this video, we will be learning about the align items CSS property in Flexbox. So let's go to the documentation. So in the last video, we have learned about the justify content CSS property, and as you have seen, the justify content CSS property aligns the element in the main axis, and the align items CSS property aligns the element in the cross axis. Okay, so as you can see, the CSS align items property sets the align self, which we will see in the upcoming videos, value on all direct children as a group. In Flexbox, it controls the alignment of the items on the cross axis. Okay, and in the grid layout, it controls the alignment of the items on the block axis within their grid areas. So we are not talking about the grid at this moment. So we will be focusing on the Flexbox part. Okay. So if I go to here, so here it is. Now what I'll do, I will add the justify content to center. Okay. And here, what I will do, I will add the width to 200 pixels and the height also to 200 pixel. Okay, and if I go to here, now everything is centered. Okay, because the justify content is set to center. Now if I just comment out the height, then what do you think will happen? So this is a tricky one, because if I just comment out the height of the flex items, then the align items CSS property will have the value of stretch. And if we go here, as you can see, all of the element has the full height as the container. So the align items property is set to stretch currently right now by default. If you go here, as you can see, here it is. So the align items is set to stretch. It can be centered, it can be start, it can be end as well. Okay, and there are a bunch of values which it can have. So flex start, flex end, self start, self end, and so on. We will be covering the most important ones, which are flex start, flex end, and center. Okay. All right, so if I just go here and do the align items and do something like, first of all, let's have the default value, which is stretch. Okay, hit save. Now, as you can see, nothing happens. Okay, now if I just set the height currently right now, okay, and hit save and go to the browser, now it respects the height of the elements. Okay, so this is something to keep in mind. Now we can have the align items to something like flex start. We can do that. And currently this will happen. Why it is happening? Because our main axis is going from left to right and the cross axis is going from top to bottom. So if I go here and do flex end and hit save, now all of the elements will be at the flex end on the cross axis. Okay, so all of the elements are at the bottom currently right now. And then the most important one, which is the center. If I do that, then all of the elements are perfectly centered inside of the flex container. And this particular combination where we are setting the justify content to center and the align items to center as well, we use that quite a lot whenever we want to center some elements. So if I go to my HTML and just comment out everything except for only one element and go here, as you can see, this element, the only element which we have currently right now, is perfectly centered horizontally and vertically. And this is one of the best way to center something inside of a container. Okay, center an element inside of a container. All right, so if I just do this, okay, hit save, now everything is centered. All right, then we can do something like flex direction to column and do that. Now everything is a column currently right now. Okay, previously it was row, but the flex direction is currently column. So now if I do something like align items to flex start, then what will happen? So because the flex direction is column, then the main axis is from top to bottom. Okay, and the cross axis is from left to right. So if I do flex start and go to the browser, everything is on the left currently right now. Okay, then we can do flex end as well. Hit save, now everything will be at the right end. Okay, and then we can do the center, which we have seen so far, right? Center, and do that, then everything will be at the center. All right, now if I just increase the height and the width, so let's do 400 pixel and then let's do 400 pixel, and now we have two columns. Okay, and let's see how that affects the align items property. So because we have the flex wrap set to wrap currently right now, so everything is wrapping, so we can do flex start. If we do that, then everything is on the left side. So the first column is on the edge of the container and the second column is starting from the middle basically. Okay, then we can do flex end as well. If we do that, then the last column or the second column is at the edge, at the right edge of the container, and the first column is at the center basically. So yeah, as you can see, this will happen. And if I do something like flex start, and we can do something like flex direction to row. Okay, if we do that, then we have two rows currently right now, and because the aligned items is set to flex start, so it is the first row is at the top edge of the container and the second row is at the middle of the container. Okay, then we can do flex end. What will happen? So now our second row is at the bottom edge of the container and our first row is at the middle. Okay, then what we can do something like center. as well. If we do that, then everything is properly centered. Okay. All right, so this is the align items CSS property. So whenever we want to align the items in the cross axis inside of the Flexbox, we use the align items. All right, in this video, we will be learning about the align content CSS property. But before starting to code, one thing you have to remember is that the align content CSS property will only applicable when we have flex wrap set to wrap and we have multiple rows or multiple columns inside of our flex container. Okay, so let's see how our container looks currently right now. We have multiple rows currently right now. Okay, so we can use the align content CSS property. So the align content CSS property sets the distribution of the space between and around content items along a flexbox's cross axis or a grid or block level elements block axis. Okay, so it is along the flexbox's cross axis. So you might be thinking like, hey, if we want to move around or align the items along the cross axis, we have the align item CSS property, right? And that works whether or not we have multiple rows or multiple columns. But here, the align content CSS property will only work when we have multiple rows or multiple columns. Okay. So basically what we will be controlling this space, like the space between the two rows currently right now and the space between above and below. Okay, so right now what we can do align content. Okay, and we have many of the things, so we can do flex start. Okay, hit save. Now as you can see, there is no space between the rows and our first row is at the top edge and the second row is just below that. Okay, and all of the space, like the remaining space, is at the bottom. Then we can do flex end as well, and you might have guessed what will happen. Everything will be at the bottom. Okay, here is our first row, then the second row, and everything is at the bottom edge, and all of the space which we had is now on top. Then we can do something like space between. And yeah, there are multiple things as well. So if we do space between, as you can see, all of the space is now between the rows. Then we can do space evenly. Okay, it is just like the justify content when we have learned about that. Okay, now the space is evenly distributed among the rows. Then we can do something like space around. Okay, and now the space is around the each of the rows. So on the top we have some space of the first row, and then on the bottom of the first row we have some space. The same thing is applicable for the second row as well. We have some space on the top and we have some space on the bottom. Okay, and we can do something like center as well. If we do center, then as you can see, all of the elements are at the center, and all of the space which we had previously on the cross axis is now distributed here on the top and at the bottom. Okay, so now this is good. Now what will happen if we just change the flex direction to column? If I set the flex direction to column, then this will happen. So if I, for example, currently right now we have the main axis which is going from top to bottom, and we have the cross axis which is going from left to right. Okay, now if I just want to move everything at the left edge, then what I want to do? Can you think about something? So we have to set the align content to flex start. Okay, if we do that, then this will happen. Everything is at the left edge. Once again, we can do something like flex end. Then everything will be at the right edge. Okay, and then we can do something like center. Then everything will be at the center. Okay, then we can do space between, then all of the space is between the two columns which we have currently right now. Then we can do something like space around, save. Now we have on the left side of the column some space, and the right side of the first column we have some space. Once again, for the second column we have some space on the left side and we have some space on the right side. Okay, all right, then we can do something like space evenly as well. Now all of the space will be evenly distributed among the columns. So here we have some space, in between the two columns we have some space, and after the second column we have some space which are equal. Okay, now what I want to show you is that if I just turn off the flex wrap, and this will happen. So everything is gone currently right now. The align content CSS property only works when we have flex wrap on and also we have multi-column or multi-row layouts. If we do not have the flex wrap on and we do not have multi-column or multi-row layouts, then the align content will not work. Okay, so we have to have the flex wrap set to wrap, and we have to have multi-column or multi-row layout. Okay, all right, so this is the align content CSS property. Hello and welcome back. In this video, we will be learning about the align self CSS property. Before doing so, let's go here and comment out the align content and flex wrap. And what I'll do, I will go to the index.html, and as you can see, all of the elements have the unique classes 1 to 6 basically. So I will just comment out this to 1. Okay, and here we have the flex direction set to column. I'll set it to row. Hit save. Now as you can see, this is what happens. Okay, and also what I'll do, I will change the width to something like 200 pixel and height to 200 pixel as well. Okay, all right, so now everything is centered and everything looks good. Okay, all right, so we will be learning about the align self CSS property. So if I go to the documentation here, basically align self is the align items CSS property but for the individual elements. So the align self CSS property overrides a grid or flex items align items value. Okay, in grid it aligns the items inside of the grid area. In flexbox it aligns the item on the cross axis. Okay, so we have learned about the align items before, right? So this is basically the align items, but we have granular control over each of the elements. Okay, and also we will be implementing the align self into a specific element rather than having it inside of the container itself. Okay, so as you can see, we have turned off the flex wrap, we have turned off the align content. Okay, now we have these classes previously, right? So for this one, for example, what I want to do here is that I want to move the second element, which is this one, the red one, to the top. How I can do that? So what is the main axis? The main axis is going from left to right. So what is the cross axis? Which is from top to bottom. Okay, so I want to align this particular element on the top of the cross axis. So how I can do that? I can do that by using the align self CSS property, and we can do something like flex start. If I save that, now as you can see, it is on the top. Then we can do something like flex end as well. Okay, and it will be at the bottom currently right now. Okay, then what I can do something like align self to stretch. Okay, hit save. Okay, wait a minute, that didn't work out. Why it did not work out? Do you have any idea? it did not work out because we are having a specific height and the width inside of this box, right? So if I just set the height to something like auto for this particular element, not for all of the element, but for this particular element which has the class of 2, in case if you do not remember, this is the element. Okay, all right, if I just do that and go to the browser, as you can see, it is now stretching across the cross axis. Okay, so this is that. Now what I'll do, I'll get rid of the height auto. I don't want that. And we can have some other values as well. So we have seen the flex start, flex end as well. Okay, so I will be setting that to something like center. If I do that, then it will be at the center. Okay, now what I'll do, I will go here and set the flex direction to column. If I set the flex direction to column, this will happen. Now, what is our main axis? Our main axis is going from top to bottom. What will be our cross axis? Our cross axis will be going from the left to right. Okay. So now if I just want to move this particular element to the left edge, what I have to do? I have to set the align self here to flex start. Okay. As you can see, it is now at the right, not right, it is at the left edge of our container. Then we can do something like flex end as well. If we do that, now it will be at the right edge of our container. We can do something like stretch as well. Once again, it didn't work. Why is that? Because it has a fixed width, this particular element. So to work with the align self to stretch, what we have to do? We have to set the width to auto. Okay, if we do that, now it is now stretching across the whole container. Okay, but I will get rid of that, and at the end I can set it to center as well, so it will be at the center. Okay, all right, so this is the align self CSS property. So if you have understood the align item CSS property before, then this will be the same, but just for the individual elements. Hello and welcome back. Next up, we will learn about the flex CSS shorthand property for the flex items. Okay, so before learning about flex, we have to learn about the constituent properties of the flex, which are flex grow, flex shrink, and flex basis. We will be learning about these three next. So in this video, we will be learning about the flex grow. So I have opened the documentation here. So the flex grow CSS property sets the flex grow factor, which specifies how much of the flex container's positive free space, this is very important, if any, should be assigned to the flex item's main size. So what do I mean by the positive free space? If I just open that, that basically means that the available space. Okay, so here, as you can see, here is our boxes. Okay, so what I'll do, I will go here and do flex direction to row. Okay, and I'll get rid of this align content. I will not get rid of the flex wrap currently right now. So width is 200 pixels, which is nice, and if I just save that and go here, okay, flex direction is row. Give me a second, just open it with the live server. Okay, just close it up, go here, refresh. Okay, there we go. All right, so now what I want here is here, so justify content is center. So let's do flex start, and align items, let's do flex start as well. Okay, If I do that, okay, all right, we have this one as well. So I will get rid of the align cell. All right, now there we go. So as you can see, we have some free space here, right? So that is the positive free space of a flex container. Okay, now for example, if I just grow this first element with the flex grow property here. By the way, the flex grow property expects a unitless number. Okay, so as you can see, 1, 2, or 3, something like that. I will get into the all of the numbers and what they mean in a bit. So what I can do, if I want to grow this first element so that it will occupy all of the available free space, then what I have to do, I have to go to the code, and then inside of this particular class I can do flex grow and set to 1. Hit save. And now as you can see, all of the available space is now occupied by this particular element. Okay, and if I just do this, okay, all of the available space is now occupied by this element. And now basically what is happening, we have the fixed width, that is why it is not responsive yet. But if we do not have the fixed width, then it will be responsive as well. I can show it to you as well. So if I just go ahead, and for the container we have the width to 1500 pixel. If I do 1600 pixel, then as you can see, once again it is taking all of the available space. Okay, now what I can do is I will just get rid of this width and see. Okay, now everything is lined up and now it is responsive, as you can see. Okay, so for this demo I will just get rid of all of the width, and what I'll do, I will add some margin of 50 pixels, something like that, on each of the sides. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, if I just shrink down, then it is shrinking down as well. And if I just expand the browser, it is expanding as well. Okay, so this is the behavior which we are seeing. All right. Now, for example, what you want is that this third box, you want this first box to grow at the rate of, for example, 1x, but you want to grow this third box at the rate of 2x. Okay, or it should occupy the twice as free space as this first one occupies. So how we can do that? We can do that by going to this class and then do flex grow set to 2. Then because the one class, this particular box has the flex grow set to 1, and this third box has the flex grow set to 2, that is why it will grow twice as fast. Okay, so if I just go here, as you can see, it is now way bigger. So the free available space which we had previously is now distributed among these two elements, and the third box has occupied twice as free space as the first box. And now if I just shrink the browser, as you can see, the rate in which it is shrinking the third box is twice as fast as well. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So this is the flex grow CSS property. Okay, so if we have some sort of a positive free space, then the free space can be distributed among the flex items. And how we can distribute that? We can distribute that by using the flex grow CSS property. Also, for example, what I can do for the third box, I can do something like 20. So now the ratio will be 20 by 1. Okay, so now if I just save that, now as you can see, it is way bigger than the first element. And if I just shrink down that, as you can see, it is shrinking down quite fast. Okay, So by using flex grow, we can distribute the free available space among the flex items. Hello and welcome back. In this video, we will learn about the flex shrink CSS property. Okay, so what exactly is the flex shrink CSS property do? So when the flex items are bigger than the flex container, then what will happen? We have seen that the flex items will be shrunken down. Okay, so now the flex shrink CSS property sets the shrink factor for the flex items. Okay, so if I just go here inside of the documentation, we have the flex shrink CSS property. The flex shrink CSS property sets the flex shrink factor of a flex item. So to demonstrate that, what I'll do here, I'll get rid of all of these, like the flex grow. Okay, and then I'll get rid of this as well. And we have this. Now I'll just do this and do the auto margin here so that everything is centered. Now what I'll do, I will set the width of all of this to 500 pixel, all of the boxes. Hit save. Now, as you can see, these are not 500 pixels worth of width. Okay, so if I just see, as you can see, it is 397. So as you can see, the width of this particular box is 397 pixels. It is not 500 pixels, which I have set. Okay. So what is happening is that by default, every flex item has the flex shrink set to 1. So this is the default value, and that is why each and every flex item is shrinking. But we can control the shrink factor as well. How we can do that? We can go to something like this particular one, and we can do flex shrink, and we can set it to 2. So what will happen? So this particular box of class 2 will shrink twice as fast as the other ones. So if I just save that, and now if I just make these ones, okay, so what is happening here? We have all of this particular width, right? So what I'll do, I will do something like 75%, something like that. So in that way, this box will be responsive. Yes. Now, as you can see, our second element, which is this particular box here, is shrinking down twice as fast as the other ones, because all of the other ones, like all of the other boxes, have the flex shrink value set to 1 by default. Okay, if I do that, same thing will happen. Okay, so in this way we can control the shrink factor of the flex items. Okay, so this is the flex shrink CSS property. Hello and welcome back. In this video we will learn about the flex basis CSS property. So let's go to the documentation on MDN. The flex basis CSS property sets the initial main size of a flex item, unless or until we describe some sort of a height or a width. Okay, it sets the size of the contained box unless otherwise set with box sizing. Okay, so what I'll do to demonstrate that is, here we have our flex items, right? And here what I can do is that, so the boxes, okay, so let's have the width of 200 pixels. Okay, so all of the boxes are here. Now what I can do is, for example, for the box 1, I can set a width, okay, and set it to 500 pixel. Hit save. Now our box is 500 pixels. Okay, the width of our box. I'll just refresh. I'll just select this box. As you can see here, I'll zoom in a little bit. So we have the width of 500 pixels for this particular box. Now, what I'll do is that I will set the flex direction to column. and save. Go here, nothing changes. So what is happening here? The width of the box is not changed, right? And this is expected. Okay. Now if I go to here and set the flex direction to row, and then what I can do here, instead of width, I can set the flex basis, and here I can set a value of pixels or percentage or something like that. I can set 500 pixels. Hit save. Now this is what is happening. Currently, if I just select once again our box, now the width of the box is 500 pixels. So the initial size of our box is being set to 500 pixels of width and 200 pixels of height by using the flex basis. But if I currently do here, go here inside of this flex direction and set it to column and hit save. Now as you can see is the height is set to 500 pixels and the width is set to 200 pixels, which was previously before. Okay, so now you might have understood like what is the difference between setting up the height and the width or using the flex basis CSS property. It sets the initial height or the width. Basically it sets the initial size of a flex item, and that is why we use the flex basis CSS property. Okay, so that our flex items are flexible inside of the flex container. Okay, so this is the difference. Now mostly what we use, basically if I just go here and set the flex direction to row, okay, so mostly what we use the flex basis with the flex grow CSS property as well. So if I just go here and set the flex grow and set it to 1, then what we are saying is that, hey, just start initially with this 500 pixels of width if we have the flex direction set to row, or start with the initial height of 500 pixel if we have the flex direction set to column, and then you can expand as much as you like. Okay, and you can take up all of the free space which is available. Now as you can see, our item has a little bit more width. So the width is 1040 pixels and the height is 200 pixels. Okay, so what is happening here? Initially it started with the width of 500 pixels and then it expanded to take up the space which was available. Okay, now the same thing will happen if I just set the flex direction to column. Okay, if we do that, then this will happen. So it started with initial 500 pixels of height and then it took all of the available free space. Okay, and as you can see, the height currently is 890 pixels. Okay, all right, so this is basically the flex basis. And what I'll do here, I'll get rid of this particular background color for the time being and I will set it to the row. Okay, so there we go. And now after this computer tab, we have another tab which is called layout, and here we have this flexbox portion and section basically. And then what I can do, I can check this div of container basically. And now as you can see, we have this flex showed up here. And if I hover over this particular element, if I just go to here, resize it a little bit, and if I hover over this element, as you can see, so the dotted portion is showing this particular flex item started with this particular initial width. And then because the flex grow is set to 1, that is why it grows and then it occupies all of the free space which was available. Okay, so as you can see, this is how we can see what was the initial value of the flex basis and how much the flex item grows. Okay, so yeah, this is the flex basis CSS property. Hi, welcome back. We have learned about the flex grow, flex shrink, and flex basis. So now we are ready to learn about the flex CSS shorthand property. Okay, so the flex CSS shorthand property sets how a flex item will grow or shrink to fit the space available in its flex container. Okay, so what does that mean is that we can use all of these values all together, like the flex grow, flex shrink, and the flex basis. Now, as you can see here inside of this demo, basically you can see the flex CSS property can take up one unitless value, something like 1 or 2. Then it can take two values as well, one unitless value and another length value. And then it can take three values as well, two unitless values and then one length value. Okay, so we will see all of that in this video. So as you can see, if I just go here, so if we set the flex to something like this, flex to 2, so this is one value, one unitless number, so that will set only the flex grow. Okay, and the flex basis will be 0. Okay, so if I just go here inside of the browser, as you can see, so what I'll do, I'll just get rid of this. Okay, and I will add the background color once again. And now what I can do flex, and then I can set it to 1. Hit save. Now go to the browser. As you can see, this particular element, the first element which we have, is now growing, right? It is now growing and occupying all of the free space which was available before. Okay, so this is similar to set something like flex grow to 1. These two lines which I have written here is the same. It will do the same thing. Okay, all right. So I'll just get rid of that. Then let's go to the documentation, and then we can have two values as well. The first value will indicate the flex grow, and the second value, which is the length value, will indicate the flex basis. Okay, so previously what we have done something like flex grow set to 1, and then flex basis set to something like 500 pixel. So we can do the same thing by using the flex shorthand CSS property. So set the flex, then set the flex grow to 1, and then we can do 500 pixel, and that will set the flex basis. If I just do that and go here, as you can see, if I just do that, as you can see the dotted value, I'm not sure whether or not the screen recording is there, like picking up the dotted values. Okay, let me just get rid of the background color for right now. And if I just go here, okay, and hover over this, as you can see the dotted value which we have, it is showing the flex basis value, and then the other part which is not dotted, it is showing the grow factor. Like, because we are having the flex grow set to 1, that is why this particular element has expanded. Okay, all right. And then if I just go here inside of the code once again, let me just have the background color on. Okay, and then the next thing is the three values. Okay, the flex property can take three values, where the first value will be for the flex grow, the second value will be for the flex shrink, and the third value will be for the flex basis. Okay, so for example, if we want to have something like flex grow set to 1, flex basis set to 500 pixel, and flex shrink set to 2, so we can just take up all of these values and write it down inside of a single line. So flex, we can set the flex grow set to 1, flex shrink set to 2 and flex basis set to 500 pixels. Okay, so this is equivalent of these 3 lines. All right, so I'll just get rid of that, hit save. Okay, hit save. Now go to here. As you can see, all of the properties are applied to our element. Okay, and I'll just turn that off. Okay, so flex grow is working, flex shrink is working, and also the flex basis is working as well. Okay, so as you can see, yeah, just go here. Yes, as you can see, the width is changing quite rapidly. Okay, so this is how the flex shorthand CSS property works. Now we have learned about all of these values, right? This like the 3 values syntax as well. Now inside of this documentation, it is quite good. Basically, it is explaining everything like the 1 value syntax, 2 value syntax, and the 3 value syntax. Okay, and then if I just go here, we can have some of the values here. So okay, so as you can see, we can have some keyword values as well. So if we set the flex to initial, then it is equivalent to this, which is the flex grow of 0, flex shrink of 1, and flex basis of auto. So if I just go here, okay, and set the flex to initial, hit save, and go to the browser, as you can see, the flex grow is set to 0. That is why it is not growing anymore. The flex shrink is set to 1. That is why if I just shrink it down, as you can see, it is shrinking. And the flex basis is set to auto. Okay, and also if I just go here, as you can see, it was previously for this element. I'll just get rid of the flex shrink as well. Okay, now as you can see, all of the elements will shrink at the same rate. Okay, so this is what the flex initial does. Then we can set the flex to auto. What will happen? This is equivalent to this particular syntax. The flex grow will be 1, flex shrink will be 1, and the flex basis will be auto. Okay, so what we can do, we can set the flex to auto. And then if I go here, so the flex grow definitely set to 1. That is why this particular flex item is growing. The flex shrink is set to 1 as well. Okay, and the flex basis is set to auto. So if I just select that, so it was starting from the 200 pixels. Okay, all right, and then we can have the none. So this is equivalent to flex 0 0 and auto. So flex grow will be 0, flex shrink will be 0, and the flex basis will be auto. So this will make our element unresponsive inside of the Flexbox. So we can do something like flex to none. If I just save that and go here, and I'll just turn that off. Now if I just grow or shrink that, as you can see, our first element is not responsive at all, right? It is not responsive at all. It is not shrinking, it is not growing, it is not doing anything at all. Okay, so this is the flex value, which is none. So this is how we can use the flex CSS property, and we can use these 3 flex grow, flex shrink, and the flex basis CSS properties at once. So this is the flex CSS property. Hi, welcome back. In this video, we will learn about the CSS order property inside of the Flexbox. So the ordered CSS property sets the order to lay out an item in a flex or grid container. Items in a container are sorted by ascending order value and then by their source code order. Okay? Items not given an explicit order value are assigned the value, like the default value of 0. So the default value of the order is 0. So here, as you can see, we have 4 items. Okay, and I can zoom in a little bit, or what I can do, I can just make them a little bit bigger. So let's do 400 pixels and do 400 pixels. Okay, hit save. Okay, now they are doing something like this. Okay, let me just close out these step tools. All right. Okay, so now what we can do, we can set the order. So for example, what I want this particular fourth element to be at the first element. So how I can do that? So as we have learned, the default value of the order is 0. So I can just do order of 0 in the box. Okay, so the default value, and nothing will change. Okay, all right, so I'll just get rid of this. Now what I'll do, I'll go to this particular class, which is the class of 4, and I can do a order of -1. I can set that, and so now this fourth element which we had previously is now the first element. Okay, so now what I can do, I can set the order value to 0 as well. So if I do that, it is now at the same position as previously. So the default value of the order is 0. Okay, now for example, what I want is that I want to interchange the third and the fourth element. So how I can do that? I can do that quite easily. So I'll go to this particular element. I can set the order and set it to 1. Okay, hit save. So as you can see, the third element is the last element currently right now. And one thing to remember is that the order value, like these elements, the items in a container are sorted by the ascending order value. Okay, so higher the order, the later the element will be. Okay, so this is the CSS order property. And now if I just turn off the Flexbox, okay, and hit save and go to the browser, so now as you can see, the order is as the code. Okay, because if I just go to the code, as you can see, the third element is coming before the fourth element. Okay, so it is following the order of the code. Okay, so this order property depends on the display flex CSS property. Okay, as you can see, there we go. So this is the order property. And now you might be thinking like, hey, what exactly is the point of the order property? Can I just not go to here? Okay, I'll just go here, I'll just remove the order, I'll just remove the order, and just go to the code and just make it something like this. And this is the same result. Yes, this is the same result. Then what is the benefit? So first of all, many of the times we do not want to do something like this, like we do not want to change the order inside of the code. And there is a nice example here inside of the MDN. So the people who uses the screen reader will get the benefit of that. So for example, we want to build a card, okay, something like this. And the most important thing inside of this card is the title, right? But the person who is using the screen reader, what will happen? The screen reader will go through all of the elements one by one, and it will first tell the date, which is on top of everything, and then it will tell the title, which is not intended and which is not good for the experience. So what we can do there, we can use the order CSS property to order the elements by this particular order. Okay, so what will happen, we will first declare the title and then date, and by using the CSS order property we can change the order and makes the card something like this. And now what will happen, whenever the screen reader will go through the content, it will first tell the title and then it will tell the date. Okay, and you can make it more specific as well. You can just add the date at the bottom, so it will tell the title first, then the description, and then the date. Okay, so this is how the order property is quite useful. Okay, this is the order property in CSS. Hi, welcome back. So we have learned a ton about the CSS Flexbox. Now we want to take our knowledge and build something by using the CSS Flexbox. And the most common thing which we build is a navigation bar, which we will be building inside of this video. Okay, so it will be a very basic navigation bar which we will build. All right, so what we can do, we can just get rid of all of the content here, and we can just get rid of these classes which we had previously, right? Okay, and I will not get rid of this. Okay, so the margin, padding, box sizing is border box, and we have the font family which is Sigu UI, Tahoma, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'll save that, I will save that, and okay, there is one div which we do not want. I will save that, and if I just go to the browser, okay, I'll just close out that. Everything is empty. Okay, so what we can do here, we can create a nav tag, and inside of that we can create a div, and inside of that we can create a h1, and here we can have the logo. So logo. Okay, and then after that we can create the ul tag, and inside of that we can create the li, and inside of that we can create the anchor element, and it will not go anywhere currently right now, and we can do something like this, home, and we can copy paste the li a bunch of time. So home, then we can do about, and then we can do something like contact, and we can do something like what we can do. Okay, so contact, and then we can do something like info or something like that, company info or something like that. Okay, so if I just go here, as you can see, we have all of the content here. So if I just go to GitHub, let us just check. So we have, okay, something like pricing. Okay, so we can do here pricing, and what I'll do, I'll just cut it here from here and paste it down here. Okay, all right, so Prettier has formatted everything. So if I go to the browser, here is our navigation bar, which is not looking like navigation bar at all. Okay, so what I'll do here, I'll add a class of nav or navigation. Okay, navigation bar. All right, and then we can have the class of logo, and then we can have the class of nav items, and we can have a class of nav item for each of the li. So just copy that, paste it down here, paste it down here, and paste it down here. Okay, all right, so we have added all of the classes which we wanted. So now go to here and do navigation bar. Okay, and here what I want, so the logo and this particular ul and the lis will be side by side, right? So what we can do, we can add a display of flex, and then we can do the align items to center, and then justify content to space between. Okay, hit save. As you can see, there we go. Okay, all of the elements are now side by side. Okay, so what I'll do as well, I'll add a box shadow of 2 pixel, 2 pixel, 2 pixel, and hash ccc, and I will add a margin around everything of 10 pixels. Hit save. Now there we go. We have these. Okay. And we can have a border as well. Border of something like 1 pixel, solid, and the same color, CCC. Okay. There we go. And we can add a something like a border radius as well. Border radius of something like 5 pixel. Hit save. All right, so this is now looking a little bit better. Okay, so we are using the Flexbox, and also as you can see, we are not setting the flex direction because it is by default row. Okay, now inside of this UL we have the allies, right? And all of these nav items should be a Flexbox as well, and it should be side by side. So what I'll do the nav items and do a display of flex. Okay, hit save. Now as you can see, all of the elements are there. Also for this navigation bar, I want to add some padding as well. Padding of 10 pixels. Okay, so if I just do that, then we have some padding as well. All right, so let me just add the 0 for top and bottom and 10 pixel for left and right. 0 pixel. Okay, not looking good. Okay, so 10 pixels for top and bottom and 20 pixels for left and right. Okay, now it should be good. Okay, all right. Then what we can do here, we can add another property which we haven't seen yet, which is a gap. We can set a gap and set something like 10 pixel, something like this. And now as you can see, all of the elements have a gap inside of here. Okay, so I can do something like 20 pixel as well. Okay, now everything is good. Okay, then what we can do, we can go to the individual nav item and do a list style of none. Okay, so there we go. And for the elements, okay, for the anchor tags, so the dot nav item and a, inside of that we can do something like text decoration of none. Okay, there we go. So all of the elements are there. So now as you can see, our navigation bar is forming and it is quite nice. Okay, so this is how we can create a navigation bar by using the CSS Flexbox. Also, as you can see, this is the basic navigation bar and the elements do not go anywhere else. Okay, so if I just zoom in a little bit, you can see that. So this is a basic navigation bar. So for the shadow, what we have here, let me just add something like 8 pixels, something like that. Okay, now it is a little bit more blurry. Okay, so yeah, this is how we can create a simple, very simple navigation bar by using the CSS Flexbox. Okay, all right.